Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, president of Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Welcome to Fearless Females. Thank you so much for joining us again today. And a big shout out to our sponsor, Fidelis Wealth Advisors. We really appreciate you making this possible. So today we're speaking with Agnesa. And the thing that impressed me the very most about Agnesa is how hard she works. This woman is amazing. And she started out so young. I got off the phone with her and called one of my kids and said, I cannot believe how amazing this woman is. So I hope you enjoy listening a little bit about her journey, and please check out the links afterwards. Agnesa is truly an inspiration and the example of a fearless female. Thanks for joining us today. We're here with Agnesa Bakhshyan, and she works for Buckner Company. She's a chief growth officer, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about what she does. But first, I've got my all-important question. This is my favorite question to ask, which is, I am a reader. I love books. What is your favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. I also love books, and I'm the type that still likes to go to the bookstore. I like to feel it, smell it, the whole experience. I get my coffee and walk around, and it's so nostalgic for me. But as far as a favorite book, it's super difficult for me to just pick one. And it's usually like the one that I'm currently reading or I just finished, right? And one that I'm reading right now that I want to share with you, I don't know if you've heard of it, but Invisible Women.
Oh,
have you heard of that?
huh.
Super interesting. Basically, and I believe it author is Carol Perez. But she goes through and analyzes data for gender bias in our society. And from something as simple as the design of a cell phone, it was created for the average size of a man's hand, right? So it's a bit large for ours, down to up until like 10 years ago, test dummies were of the average male. So you were 50% more likely to die in a car accident as a woman. So this world is designed by men for men. And it was, it's been really eye-opening for me.
Oh, that's one I definitely have to put on my list.
Yeah, you really have to check it out. It's kind of a hard read because there's a lot of data and it's lengthy. But if you actually kind of get through it and you sit back and you're like, wow, that is so interesting.
Data is my bread and butter. You just said my favorite words. If you added return on investment and finance in there, we'd be great.
There you go.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. What do you do there at Buckner, and kind of how did you get where you are today? Tell me a little.
Yeah. I'll start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to this beautiful country in 1988 from Armenia, which was a former Soviet Union country. And my parents came to this country with $50 in their pocket and with the American dream. And actually, they won a visa through a lottery system.
Oh, wow.
So the odds of that, right? We were destined to be here. But they made the dollar stretch further than anyone that I know. And we did have a few family members here in the U.S., so that did help. But failure was not an option, especially when you grow up hearing your parents talk about rationed food or electricity that was not available around the clock. And to hear those struggles, down to when we're talking about books, they didn't have access to every book that was out. It was very limited, right? Whatever the government thought that you should read. And so to me, I took that personally. I'm like, my parents fought to be in this country. And failure was never in my vocabulary. I was going to make them proud. And I come from very humble roots. So for me to have even back to school clothes, I had to figure out how to make money. And so I'll never forget, I started out when I was 8 years old. I would help the neighbor next door. She would deep clean her house every summer. So I did that for 3-4 years, and I'd work all summer and make $600-700, and I'd do all my back to school clothes shopping. Right. I didn't want to burden my parents. And it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. Paid for my own braces, my own college education. whatever I could to help out the family.
Yeah.
But my parents were also very super conservative, helicopter mom. She would not let us out of her sight, and newer to the country, so she didn't really know the system, trust the system. So I was not able to even just walk down to the grocery store, have sleepovers, none of that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a free bird. And so I had to figure out a way to get out of the house and out of my parents' control. And the only way I could do that is if I was to get a job, a real job. I told my parents that this was the plan, and they said, all right, well, we support you, but can't be a grocery store, can't be fast food. It needs to be an office job, because they didn't think, and at that time I was 13, that I could even find an office job. So during lunch break in junior high, I overheard a friend talk about that she was doing telemarketing in the evenings at a local insurance agency. And the light bulb went off. I immediately asked her to, get me in touch with the owner. And yeah, I was 13. I went and interviewed. His name's Keith.
Wow.
Comey. He's passed since. And he said, I like you, but I can't hire you till you're 14. And my birthday was 3 months away. On my birthday, I showed up in his office. He said, okay, you start tonight. And I did. And I absolutely loved it. I averaged more quotes than anyone there. And so shortly thereafter, they moved me up to filing receptionist. The day I turned 18, I got licensed. I put myself through college working at this local independent agency, and I was actually recruited right from underneath their nose by Nationwide.
Uh-huh.
They had heard about me, and they were doing a westward expansion. Well, they didn't realize how young I was. And so initially they threw an opportunity. Hey, we'd love for you to open up an agency. Then they figured out how old I was. Like, well, let's align you with another gentleman who's opening up shop. So what I ended up doing is this gentleman had a benefits background.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran the benefits side of the business, and I grew the P&C side. I grew it fast, and I managed a team, and I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
He later did some things that upset Nationwide. And I was with him for 2 years. I said, well, okay, I proved myself. I now want an opportunity to open up my own agency. Yet again, they doubted me and said, okay, why don't you do the starter program? So they put me on a 2-year program to, again, grow book. And then they would give me some capital to open up an agency. And I was one of 2 that finished that program in the nation, and ended up opening up my insurance agency, went on some fun trips with Nationwide. Nationwide is a great company. I kind of outgrew that. I wanted to be challenged, in personal line space. There's only so much you could do. And Nationwide's appetite was really limited on the commercial side. And Buckner had been a brokerage that had always come across my desk. I had heard great things about Terry Buckner, the CEO. So I showed up to an interview, and this next story will sum up who I am to the core. I had done my research on the website, and I'm doing the interview, and Terry Buckner was there, and he said, look, tell me why you're here. What interests you about Buckner? I said, well, I was on your website, and I noticed that everyone is male, pale, and stale. And that you could use some diversity here. And I knew that could go, multiple directions, but that's truly how I felt.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, you know what? You're absolutely right. We've been looking for someone like you.
Yeah.
And that's where that journey started. I've had great mentors here who have helped me along the way. Many of them were other females. And last year, there was an opportunity. After 25 years in the business, I felt like it was time to step into leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some internal changes, and I approached Terry Buckner again. I had a vision. I drew out a business plan, and we both agreed that it would be a good fit. And I'm about a year into the role. I'm still learning. I'm still developing my leadership skills. I do wear 2 full-time hats now. So I lead, and I have my own book of business and my clients. And it's very challenging, but it's the right fit for me right now.
Yeah. You strike me as someone who just really needs to always be learning and growing. And
yes,
Yeah.
I get bored very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. I have that problem too. I get that entirely. So how old were you when you came over to the United States?
I was 4 when we
4
moved to
years?
the States. Yeah.
And how many siblings did you have? How many kids did your parents bring over?
I have one older brother.
So it was just the two of you when you came.
Yeah. Most Armenian families are 2 to 3. It's very rare that you'll find, a larger household.
Well, that must have been an amazing experience. And it just really shows your gumption and grit. I admire that. And it's inspiring.
I credit a lot of the women in my family. Even though most of them were homemakers, they were very powerful women who, they taught me respect from early on, never to take no for an answer. And I feel like some of the success I've had is because I wanted them to kind of live through me.
Yeah.
They didn't have an opportunity for higher education and so it's been a fun journey.
Yeah. I find it interesting. I actually was able to stay home with my kids for the first 12 years
That's beautiful.
of their growing up. And I find you said, they were just a homemaker. I found that it was so hard. That was such a hard job. And,
absolutely.
and looking at like your respect and your, I don't know, just the way that you feel about these women in your life and their example in your life, you can tell that you get that. I once told one of my sisters, I'm like, your job at work, I said, your job staying home with kids is like way more, it's way harder than your job.
Absolutely. I couldn't do it. And I apologize if it came out a different way because I didn't mean it that way. I mean, my mom, she was first one for school pickup. She was right up front. And that makes a difference. Even though she didn't speak English, she was at all the PTA. Like she was so involved with us. And that truly defines who I am today. If I went home to an empty house, who knows the trouble that we would have gotten into. Yeah. So definitely credit to both my parents.
Yeah, no, I didn't take it as a negative sort of thing. It's just that a lot of times people do look at, someone who's staying at home and they're like, oh, they're just
no, not at all. Have you seen the image where it's like a woman and she has multiple arms because, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's making appointments. Total respect to, I call them domestic engineers.
Yeah. I domestic managers is my title, but yeah, that's exactly it's so much work. And I think so little recognized sometimes just how much effect they have on that next generation and what they brought to the table to make you into the person that you are. It's an amazing story.
Yeah. And the amount of confidence too, ever since I was a little girl, whether it was about, you're beautiful or you're smart, you're strong, like just hearing that continuously over the years, you start believing it. Right. And my grandma, she spoke 7 different languages and she would help me, if I was memorizing poetry, I just remember she would practice with me. She would, okay, put it underneath your pillow. And when you wake up in the morning, like just strong women all around who were there.
Yeah. I love that. I love that image because I have those same strong women in my life and made me into who I am today. And I credit that. In fact, part of the reason that I do this podcast is because I feel like as working women today, we owe a debt of gratitude to those who came 20 years before us and broke ground. And so
I agree.
Like to give back to those that are 20 years behind us trying to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
So, tell me about the best investment that you made in yourself through this journey. Was there something that you could say, oh, I'm so glad I did that really made?
Outside of my college education, I would say when my son was 6 months old, I went on a girls' trip to New York. And it was the first time I stepped away from my son. And I'm so glad I did, because if I hadn't, I'd be the type that could never leave my child. That's just who I am. And there was a lot of judgment, like, oh, he's still a baby. He's only 6 months. And it was just like a 4-day trip. But when I did that, I needed it. I needed to feel like myself. I needed to be around other women. I needed that needed to just detach. And because I did that, I was able to refocus on myself. And on that trip, these women helped me they're like, you can't operate with mom guilt. And I was a mom later in life. And so they all had teens and I needed to hear that. And I needed to process some things. And so that was critical for me to just prioritize myself, even though this baby needed me, my career needed me, my husband needed me. And now I get it. I used to react a certain way when my girlfriends, so I have a couple of them who on their birthday, they tell their husbands that they want 2 days alone in a hotel in their own town. And I'm like, I would have like such a hard time understanding. So I'm like, it's your birthday. You want to be alone in a hotel? And I get it now.
Yeah.
I absolutely get it.
Yeah. 100%. I think it is important to have that distinction between you as a person, Agnesa, and who you are, and you as a mom or as a wife.
Yes.
It's a different person, and you need to be really comfortable and secure in the fact that you are your own person too.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So I will admit that was one of my Mother's Day. That was always my Mother's Day gift, is that take care of the kids and take them, I don't know, to the mall, to the movie theater, anywhere. And it was just quiet for one full day. That's all I needed.
Yep. You don't have to be serving anybody or attending to anyone's needs. Oh, I get it 100% now.
Yeah. So what is the worst advice you have ever been given? And did you take it or did you learn from it? Tell me about that.
I don't know if this is necessarily advice, but this is a moment that was very impactful. I had a colleague, a very successful colleague, tell me when I was pregnant that I couldn't be a successful insurance professional and a mother. And I had such a hard time with that. But instead of being angry about the comment, I took that and I ran with it. And every time I was having a hard day or I needed to make another call, go to another meeting I didn't want to go to, I would just remember this remark. And I've confronted and forgiven him for it because I put myself in his shoes and in his world. And the women in his life are all domestic engineers and have chosen that path. So he had never seen a woman succeed with wearing both hats. I think since then he's gained more respect for me, but really I probably should thank him because it just drove me harder and further.
Straightened your spine and made you walk on, right?
Yep. Yeah. I used it as motivation.
So how did you, that's something that's really difficult to do is adjust to a mom and, a professional and successful professional at that. Tell me how some of that went. Like what are the things that you did to help you there?
I did one thing that I would have done different. I only took 6 weeks off for maternity and I worked the whole 6 weeks. And whenever I have a woman around me that's pregnant, do not do that. Enjoy those 3 months.
Yeah.
Work will always be there. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's very difficult. But I do have help. I have an amazing husband and partner. He works as well, but my mom helped raise my son the first 3 years of his life. He's bilingual, which is really cool for second generation. But it really does take a village and I've had great help and support. I do tell my team that if I am off, and then the same thing goes for them, but if I'm on vacation or if I'm off, I am off. I'm not taking any calls or emails. My family time is extremely important to me because the rest of the time it's a balancing act and I'm doing calls and emails and then within my son's presence. And so when I have that designated time to be with them and they do respect it. And it's the same way. If they're on vacation, I do not bother them.
Yeah. I love that. I could probably learn from that, to tell you the truth.
It's difficult because then you come back and you've got a gazillion emails and
Yeah, Yeah, I will admit I have taken a day off and come back and been like, oh, I'm never taking a day off again.
Why did I do that?
Yeah. But I do think that balance is really important, and it's important to set those boundaries and be present in those moments. And although I'm not great at it, I do encourage my team to be better. I'm like, excel where I'm failing.
Yeah.
So, what about regrets? Looking back, if there's a situation or something that you could have changed and done differently?
Regrets. I don't have a ton of regrets in my professional life. I've always been kind of fearless and just gone after. But I do feel like because I was chasing success all the time, that I wanted more children. And I feel like now I'm out of time. And I will maybe one day adopt from Armenia. That's a goal of mine. But I always put career first because of that, that biological clock ticks. And I really wish I had at least one or maybe two more children. But those are sacrifices I made. And luckily I have one child that is extremely well-rounded.
Yeah.
And he makes life really interesting. And I could give the one child a great life, lavish vacations and private education and all those good things. But yeah, because I made my career a priority, I only have one kid, and I wish that was different.
Would there have been something that, like, is there something that the company could have done did you feel like you couldn't take time off to have kids, or, something?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to tell you, when I was pregnant, it was the beginning of my second year here, which is the time period you're trying to prove yourself, prove your worth. And I came in on a decent salary, which they do while you build your book, right? I was terrified to tell my leaders that I was pregnant. I pushed it off several weeks. I was very concerned. They had made a huge investment. You should never feel that way. You should never, but I did. And I got two very different reactions. And I will never forget, I went into labor 3 weeks early, and it was because of stress at work. That particular day, I was at work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. working on my largest account. I went into labor, and I thought that I had secured this renewal. Everything was great. We were supposed to go pick up a check Monday. I go into labor. I tell my sales officer, hey, I need you to go pick up this check Monday. Well, this gentleman decided, because now I'm a new mom, that I'm not going to be able to assist him with his insurance needs. So I'll never forget, I'm holding my baby and I'm just bawling because I'm thinking my career is over. And I since then, this particular client has come back to me, and I've confronted him about this and how difficult that was. And so we've worked it out, but that was very difficult. That was a very impactful moment in my career. But I thought to myself, I probably don't want to do business with someone that will just drop a woman because she birthed a child.
Yeah.
And he figured it out over the years, my worth and the value that I brought to the table. And so it was kind of nice when he kind of crawled back.
Validated. Yeah. But it probably impacted that, I remember getting my kids, the very first hour. It's just a special experience. And it's hard to have that impacted by something that's happening.
Oh, totally. And your hormones are out of whack.
Yeah. And you're crazy crying mess.
We're already crying about everything. And it did take from the moment. I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Kind of robbed me of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that you've since proved them wrong. I mean, I was told a lot of times, you're a girl, girls don't do math, So I'm a financial advisor. I'm like, well, but girls don't do that. That's not their job. They don't do math, and I had to kind of overcome that sort of idea or stereotype or whatever. And so I I see that you've moved past well, you can't be a good mom and a good insurance agent. You absolutely can.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, even being Armenian, I mean, in my 20s and early 30s, like, when are you going to have children? You need to have children. And the pressure and why are you a career woman? It's a man's job to take care of it. Well, yeah, I heard it all.
Yeah. So if you could go back and talk to that 20-year-old self and give her some advice, what would you tell her?
You're amazing. I was 20. I had purchased a condo, and I will never forget that I was holding the key. I walk in, I'm in this empty condo, and I'm bawling. I'm bawling because my family is upset. They're upset because you're not supposed to leave the house until you get married. I dealt with this identity crisis my whole life. I'm too Armenian, I'm too American, and the values, and my family's very conservative, but I lean more liberal. But in that moment, being 20 years old, I should have just been so proud of myself. What an accomplishment. And I would tell her, don't worry about being a pleaser. Don't worry about pleasing your parents. It's going to be all right. Everything will work out.
Give yourself a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Especially, I'm going to turn 40 this year, and you start reflecting on the last 2 decades. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing that, for allowing me to go back.
I found it helpful for myself as well to kind of look back and say, really, you've done amazing things, because we talked about the mom guilt, and you always aren't doing enough. You aren't doing enough in your family. You aren't doing enough as a mom. You aren't doing enough as a daughter. A lot of times that's the way I feel, is I'm just not doing enough. And if you have a chance to look back on all you've done, you are amazing. You are incredible. You really have. Look at where you came from and where you are now, and all the lives that you've impacted.
Yeah. I needed this today, Lorie. I really did.
Oh, so we've talked a little bit about some of them, but are there any particular challenges that you kind of faced just because of your gender? I know that, maternity leave is an issue that comes up. My sister said that she had her 3rd baby just so she could get some time off because she needed a little bit.
I love that.
But is there anything that?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
You and I are both in a very male-dominated industry. At our firm, we only have 2-3 other female brokers. That can cause lots of challenges and issues, and for you to have a voice at the table. As women, we have to be more prepared. We have to be louder. We have to be more present and active. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey. I do remember there was 8 of us pregnant at the same time here, and everyone's trying to pump. We didn't have enough facilities, and so to put that on their radar, like some of us were pumping in a supply room.
Yeah.
And again, designed a world designed for men. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, but we've progressed though, like and Utah's usually a bit more behind than the rest of the nation on certain things. But yeah, it also makes me think of the time when I had my nationwide agency. I had a gentleman walk in, and he said, "I'm here to speak to the owner." And he was an older gentleman. I said, You're speaking to her. And it blew his mind, like he thought I was lying. And I'm like, no, that's my name on the door,
Yeah. Like, is your daddy home?
But one of my initiatives here at Buckner's, I do want to hire more female insurance brokers and salespeople. We bring some very unique traits to the table. We gain trust much easier. We're very detail oriented. We're organized. The skill set that we bring aligns so well with the sales world,
mm-hmm.
and it really differentiates us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't come across as a used car salesman. We often do what we say we're going to do, and for the right woman, whether it's the insurance industry or the financial industry, And it allows us the flexibility we need to be a mother or wear other hats within the community, right? Like if I want to go to my son's Christmas program, I don't need to ask for time off. And in the sales world, as long as you hit your numbers, nobody cares how or when you're doing it, as long as you're doing it.
Yeah.
So I try to preach that to other women that, this is a great career and you're not capped out. No one tells you how much you're worth an hour. You make what you put into this. And it's like owning your own business without having the headache of overhead and managing people and HR and all that.
Yeah, I found that's something that translates over into finance as well, that you take care of your clients, you make sure that they are getting what they need, but that you can work that around kids or taking care of parents or taking care of pets or whatever caretaking opportunity that you're going to have. It can be a little flexible.
Oh, and that's interesting because our caretaker hat kind of changes throughout life, right? We older parents to care for, and I was telling you earlier about my aging dog, and it seems to always default to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just part of the hats we wear. And I do think that as we encourage more women to come into these more male-dominated, we have to help prepare a place for them to have the flexibility that they need, so that they don't have to, quit to take care of kids, so that they can continue to have a career. It just might not look the same as a 9 to 5 in the office.
Definitely. But one thing that attracted me to the insurance industry is, a doctor has to be working with their patient, an attorney has to be in the courtroom, but with insurance, and the beautiful part is residual income, right? You could be on vacation, people are paying their premiums and you're still making money. And to me, that was really enticing because hopefully the goal is you don't have to work as hard 10 years into this as you did in the beginning.
Yeah.
You service your clients, you get referrals. Best kind of business is referrals for you and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Yeah. And you can make a really good life and you can make an impact in your clients' lives as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love helping people. I mean, the money's great. We all need money to pay our bills and thrills, but you get to help people. A lot of people are intimidated by insurance or finances.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes easy to you or if it's something that's interesting to you and you get to help folks and make money, it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Do what you love.
Yep.
I think I find it a hard sell sometimes explaining how exciting finance is.
Nobody thinks insurance is sexy either, Lorie. So it's all good. We're trying. We have an amazing marketing gal, Harvard degree and all, and she's trying to make insurance sexy every day.
More power to her. Good luck. So, what is the thing, Agnesa, that you are most proud of?
I'm definitely proud that I'm able to be an incredible mother and be successful at my job. In addition to that, I am so grateful that I'm able to, we just got back from Cabo a few weeks back, and I took my dad on that trip. That I'm able to show them the good things in life that maybe they weren't able to do for themselves, and to thank them for being brave and coming to this country and giving me and my brother a better opportunity. Yeah, I'm grateful that I can send my son to a Montessori school, and at the same time appreciating the small things in life, having a roof over our head. And we're so blessed. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We're so blessed to be in this country. I mean, it's everything going on in the world, and even our worst day here it's nowhere near their worst day. And just being able to, and I give back to my community as well, and being able to hopefully inspire other women, both here in my firm and within the community, both my Armenian community and the community here in Utah, and just giving back to women.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful statement, just that we are so blessed, and our worst day is not anywhere close to, we're not looking for food or shelter. We're not worried about our kids not coming home. We're so blessed and being able to give back.
beginning of COVID, I went on a humanitarian trip with a couple of friends of mine to Cuba. Internally, I really wanted to go just to see with my own eyes what my parents talked about my whole childhood, right? It's being that it's communist nation. And the people there, they were so beautiful. They didn't have much, but they were so thankful for the little bit that they did have. And I even though it's a bit difficult, you have to have a specific reason. I would recommend everyone to go to Cuba just to see that themselves. And I came back feeling even more grateful as an American. I mean, their buildings were so run down. You could see that at one point that there was so much wealth and beauty there, right? But the buildings weren't taken care of. And yes, I saw people stand in line and get their rationed chicken and rice. I walked into a grocery store and there were 2 items on the shelf. I walked into a market and one toothbrush was $25. They did not have soap, paper towels, toilet paper. You would go to a fine dining restaurant and you would have to buy a sheet of TP. I mean, talk about, just jaw-dropping experience. It was, every American needs to see that, because we sit around and we complain about first world problems.
Yeah. I will do that sometimes. I'll be telling all of my horrible woe to, Carly up front. And I'm like, this is a real first world problem, Carly.
Yeah. I always preface too, before I vent to someone about like first world problems.
Yeah.
But I need to vocalize them still. Yeah.
So looking back at young lady who maybe is starting on a path that you're already more than halfway down, what advice would you give her to be successful like you?
Never take no for an answer. I tell myself that every day still.
Uh-huh.
Surround yourself with other positive men and women. Be curious, whether that's asking questions, speaking up, insert yourself in places that may get uncomfortable. Maybe, that you don't think you belong there, but continue to learn. I am jack of all trades in a sense. So when I was younger, my parents would take me along to translate for everything. Grandma's doctor's appointments, every credit card transaction. And that helps to break the ice, right? And being in sales, you often have a few seconds to a couple minutes to break the ice and to be relatable. So yeah, just continue to learn and be fearless, really. Yeah, just don't let the unknown hold you back.
Yeah.
You might fail. I mean, I fail all the time. I still have to do like cold calling. And I did one yesterday and I got a no and it sucked. But I'm like, oh, that's okay. Law of numbers, like 10 more calls and someone will say yes, right?
No. Yeah. So I really like that idea of like, do it scared. Fearless is not having fear. Fearless is working through that fear. Do it anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Agnesa. It's just been, I've loved this conversation. It's just amazing. Where can people find out more about you if they want to?
I have some online presence with LinkedIn, but if anyone has any interest in learning about whether it's sales or the insurance industry, more than welcome to email me. We could set up some time. My email address is just Agnesa, Agnesa @Buckner, BUCKNER.com. But yeah, would love to have a conversation and provide direction. Know a lot of people within the community, even if it's not insurance and it's a different area. Would love to align folks.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. I've just really enjoyed this. Thank you for letting us get to know who you are.
Thank you, Lorie. I appreciate your time.